Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. People are going to straggle in here. I appreciate you all showing up on time. I'm Barb Dye with the Colorado Music Association. I'm legally the president. Okay, with that, I'll introduce Rachel, and she can tell you a little bit about herself, and go ahead and start here.
Alena, I'm going to kind of go through what we're going to talk about today. And I know that Barb had mentioned that we don't want to talk too much about you, but I actually want to just ask you all a couple questions. I'm super interactive, right? So I hear myself talk all day long. And so I want to have the opportunity to hear you all talk and to do a little bit of talking and teaching you all some stuff. And then we can get together and have you have some interaction. So I wanted to know, what made you come here? What are you hoping to learn to get up out of your home to come here on Saturday morning? What are you guys looking for? What would you like to learn?
I just would like more tools in terms of the voiceover world.
Okay.
And any tidbits about anything in terms of performing, vocals, all of that.
Are you doing voiceovers now, or
yes.
have you done them to a home studio?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Very good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about you?
I'm here to find out whether I can pull this off.
Okay. Just kind of starting. Okay.
Just starting.
Awesome. Okay. And you?
I've never done it before. People for years have told me I have the voice for it.
Yeah, that
Or
makes
some fond of saying voice and a face made for radio. So I just thought I'd check it out.
Okay. And you?
Yeah,
Just
one-
learning.
Yeah, know more about it.
Yeah.
Stuff. I have a couple friends that do it.
Okay. And for you?
I've done a few voiceovers and I host a podcast.
Oh, cool.
So it's
From your own studio, did you host that?
yeah, from my house.
And when you're doing your children's album, are you doing that as well from your house?
Not the children's album.
No. Okay.
Don't let Teresa fool you. She's got a fabulous voice.
And do you have a little studio at home?
Sorta, but it's not. Also live by a train track, so it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not the greatest.
That's okay.
But
yeah.
yeah, I'd really like to get more involved in voiceover. And
You
I
can still do it if you live by train tracks.
Yeah.
That's totally
And
cool.
I can do a kid's voice because I did kid voice
Oh, you
on
can.
my album.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And you? You guys are just here
Oh,
to just be here?
I'm here because I'm interested
Okay.
in hearing what you have to say.
And you're here to deliver coffee?
Well, I'm here to host, but it's something of interest.
Just
so.
interest. Okay. Well, and all about the coffee. If you guys want any coffee, come on up while I'm talking. If anybody wants it, it's right here. I might grab some in the middle. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about, and it should address all of what you're talking about. And at the end, if we have time for questions, I can answer any of that. We're going to talk about, first I'm going to tell you about me and my history, just so you know who you're talking to, and kind of how I got from where I started to where I am today. We're going to talk about the history of the voiceover industry, and kind of how it went from where it was to where it is today, what kind of jobs are out there, what's available, kind of what the industry looks like, where the work is coming from, what producers expect, what talent agencies expect. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit about the different types of timings, and that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about to you. Then for the second half, we're going to analyze a script from a voice talent's perspective. And so that'll be really fun. It'll be interactive with you all, and then give you, whoever wants to come up, a chance to kind of come and learn some of the tools and kind of do some of the tools. Because I'm always a big believer in us working congruently together rather than me just talking to you, because I think that's a better way to start. Yes?
So would you be able to come to our house or studio and just check out our setup and give us advice about what we need?
Sure.
What
Yeah.
we need?
So I am not an engineer in that I'm not technical to be like, you should buy this microphone. I can tell you what type of microphone, I can tell you what type of soundproofing, I can give you resources to move in that direction, and help you get the general setup going, but I'm not an audio engineer. So my setup for my house, and this is way in the future of this discussion, but my setup in my house is very much set up for voice talent only, not for band. That's okay. He's okay. He can talk. We can all use voices. It's okay. So anyway, so yes, I can certainly do that and help you. Well, I'll start at the beginning. So I sing in the band Rachel and the Ruckus, which is probably where some of you know me from. But I've been a voice talent for 20 years. I started out, my dad was a musician in Los Angeles, and then I recorded my first session singing job for hire when I was 14. I was just a freshman in high school. And I got hired to do the lead role on this thing called Toad Hall, where I was the female child vocalist. So that was kind of my first introduction into the studio world. So then I went on to the Dick Grove School of Music and graduated with a major in voice and a minor in piano. And when I graduated from school, they were looking for a receptionist at the school. So I applied and got the job, which meant that, you know, I was dead in the center of Los Angeles. I was able to field all the phone calls that came into the school where they were looking for things. So whether they needed actors for commercials or whether they needed musicians, you know, session players, or whether they needed session singers, I was the one answering the phone. So I was able to, from there, parlay myself into being a session singer, which was a great experience in the studio. So I was like, if they wanted, like a songwriter wanted songs done for like Linda Ronstadt or anybody, you know, Bonnie Tyler, I was able to have the opportunity to go in and do that material and be the singer that was able to read it and then submit it. So that put me in the studio. I was 18 at the time, at a really young age, where at one of my sessions, the producer said, "Do you speak as well as you sing?" And I said, "I don't know, I'll try it." And so I did, and I did an on-hold message for him at that time. And I thought, you know what? This is awesome, because I can be a singer, but I can also do some talking, you know. So then I went on and took some private lessons on how to be a voice talent, which led me kind of to where I am today. So I've been doing it for 20 years. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of narrations. I've done, just this past week, I narrated for Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, and Pfizer. Actually, within the month of May. I've done Cinderella for Disney. I've done all kinds of work. And I think that's because I developed a really strong skill base and then have been very flexible with where the work comes from today. So that's kind of, so I am a working talent. I was a talent first, and I'm with Big Fish Talent, and they one day asked me to come in. They said, "We need a voice talent expert. Can you come in and speak to our talent?" And I was like, "Oh, you know, it wasn't something I had thought about doing. I was used to being behind the mic or singing in front of people, but not really speaking." So I said, "Sure." This was back at the end of 2015, and at the end of that, people started coming to me, and then Big Fish Talent started recommending me to everybody that called, and people kept coming, and I really resisted being a teacher. I was an entertainer. I did not want to teach, but it's been the most rewarding journey to watch people start and then move from where they are. So I just kind of embraced it, and now I'm moving into corporate trainings for speakers, which is just going to be starting for me. Just kind of a whole new level of what I'm going to be doing, teaching them how to use their voices and stuff, just because these things keep coming, and so I'm moving in that direction. Anyway, so the point being is that's how you wind up with me here, talking to you. I'm a believer in momentum, which I'll talk about later, but for me coming here and talking is really good for myself as far as my momentum goes, because it keeps me on my toes with being able to understand my topic, to know what I'm talking about, and I learn a lot from everybody. I learn a lot from my students that come in, from listening to you all and finding out what people are interested in. It helps me to kind of define what I need to do for myself. So that's, if you wonder, you know, what's she doing here, that's what I do, because it just keeps my momentum going. So that being said, I'm going to go back to when I started, because I want to be relevant to you all so you can understand kind of where we are today. So I started out in the early 90s, was my first voiceover experience. Back at that time, the voiceover industry was run by a very select group of people in Los Angeles and New York and the A markets, which I'll talk about. Colorado's a C market, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But back at that time, there was a very select group of people. Don LaFontaine, who made millions, you know, he was the voice, that deep voice that did everything. And that announcer voice was super in vogue back then. It was really hard to break into. What I did was, you know, with the session singing and the voiceover was very small level. You know, I was in smaller studios, not in the big TV industry studios. It was just, that was incredibly difficult with those big agents to break into, and in a very exclusive club. Well, back at the end of the 80s, what happened is a thing called, I don't know if you're all familiar with this, but ISDN, does anybody know what that is? Do you know what that is? What it is it's the ability to through the phone lines, plug in and record into your client studio. So when that happened, people like Don LaFontaine, those guys who went down to the studios, they were able then to do it from their home or from somebody else's studio. I don't think there was really home studios at that time. So when ISDN was introduced, people then were able to go and do this outside of their areas, right? So they were now expanding. For example, this is a little side note, but like KBCO, right? The lady who does, you know, the voice on KBCO? She used to be down at Cube Studios, because I've been a voice talent down at Cube Studios in Boulder. They have a core group of people, and they had for years. Well, she moved to like, I don't know, New Mexico or Arizona or something. When she made that move, she's able to record from her home studio to come back and do that, you know, for them. So things have changed. But anyway, so when ISDN came in, that changed the industry. That was the beginning of what we have now. From there, the digital world came in, right? So when the digital world came in, the whole industry changed. Now the exclusivity that used to be there disappeared. You have all kinds of people that are interested in doing it from home, which lands us to where we are today, where we have moms, lots of moms. I was a mom. I took some time off to raise my kids and was petrified to get back into the voiceover business because I actually hired a coach, a life coach, to help me. He's like, you should be a voice talent. That's what you were. And I'm like, no, it's too competitive now.
I did.
That things have changed, you know. And
It's a fun.
there's tons of moms, there's lots of retirees, there's lots of those types of people who are getting into it because people can do it from home. And there is a slew of work, and there's a slew of competition. So it's a very interesting mix. It's kind of like being an actor in the sense where you have to do a bunch of auditioning, you know. So what do you need? What skills do you need to have to be a voice talent? If you're a musician, that's really helpful because you transfer a lot of those skills. If you have a nice natural voice, that's really helpful. To me, the most important thing is if you're able to connect with other people. That's what it comes down to. Because, so remember we went back and we were talking about the 80s, right? Those deep, deep voices, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that was the announcer voice that was super in vogue back then. Why are you laughing?
Because we had this conversation when it was playing around with some script.
But it's not anymore.
It's not.
No. Now it's the Apple guy. It's the lady next door. It's grandma. It's, you know, if you all leave here and you go and you listen to the radio, you'll hear that there are some of those announcer things, but it's a whole lot easier to be an announcer than it is to use commercial pacing, commercial timing, all of the inflections and all the things that you do as a voice talent and sound like you're the listener's best friend, right? So to me, when I coach people, I always talk about you're talking to one person, right? So like a theater actor or an on-camera actor, our goal in doing that is to get a script and to, in a theater you want to be broad, you want to talk to a lot of people. In commercial acting you're talking to you're a character and you're portraying that character to a large number of people. My feeling about voice acting is no matter what you're doing, if you're doing tutorials and teaching people, I don't know, at Microsoft how to recruit other people, or if you're at Cinderella, like in a kid's Disney toy, no matter what it is, there's one person on the other end who you are connecting with. If you're not connecting, you're not a good voice talent. That's just how I feel. And I think that we all can agree that when we listen to the radio and you hear these people talking at you, it's frustrating and you want to just turn it off. But if you hear somebody that's talking with you, it's a much more pleasant experience. Just like me talking to you today, if you feel like I'm talking at you and shoving information down your throat, then it's not going to be fulfilling for you. You know, we all want to connect and everybody wants to feel like they have that connection. So I think that's a really important thing that distinguishes the pro voice talent from these days. I'm not talking about back the announcer voice talent, which still exists. But that's where I think that the main difference is with that. That's what I'm going to talk about next. Okay, I'm going to talk about the voiceover industry and what kind of work there is. Because I'm sure you're all wondering. Do you all know what kind of work is there? What do you guys think? Anybody?
Corporate training videos.
Yes, that's my big money maker. That's what I do. Is the majority is corporate training videos, which are long and tedious, and there's lots and lots and lots of
Audiobooks.
audiobooks. Yep. Okay.
I just had a question about the corporate training. Do you feel like that's kind of the vocal side of like technical writing? Because I do a lot of technical writing.
Yes, exactly. It's, in fact, when we get a little further, I'm going to pass around some scripts just of my clients for you all to see, and you'll see some of that stuff. Like I did a giant thing for Microsoft where they're talking about, they're teaching their recruiters how to recruit. And it's just page after page of, because these days right now with that corporate training, used to be you'd get like a textbook and you'd go to courses where people were standing in front of you and teaching you things. Now you click, you go online, you do your training, and to pass to the next course, and you click and you click and you click. There's all kinds of voices that need to be done for that, But everybody has their expertise because there's animation. I have a student who's an incredible animator. He can do any voice in the world. So his niche is not going to be the corporate thing, He doesn't have that smooth, soft, interesting, connecting voice. He's got a character voice. So there's animations, let's see, like I did, for Disney, I did Cinderella for an interactive app, an interactive tablet for kids. So like what he's doing, he's there playing on that game. I don't know what noises or sounds are on there because I can't hear them, but for me, I've done a number of those where the kids, I'm the voice that says, click 1 to move on, click 2, so then they can have, and the narrator for Cinderella, right? I've also done the Three Little Pigs. I did a children's app where I was the voice of the person who, the narrator, like the Three Little Pigs, that kind of a voice, but then all of the different character voices, because there's 3 character voices and a wolf. So that's using all of those different skill sets for things. And then there's the audiobooks. I have heard a rumor, I don't know, I have not confirmed this, I didn't confirm before I came here, but I've heard that Amazon wants to take all of the audiobooks they have and all of the books they have and turn them into audiobooks, which opens up that industry for people. The audiobook production, I have a book deal right now with Mimosa Publishing that I've just terminated, but that's what I've been with for the last couple of years. I'm just finishing. That can be a lower rate. So you have commercial work, right? Commercial work is the highest rate. And there's A-market commercials. So that's Los Angeles, New York. You're competing in that A-market with some of the really good actors. Those theater actors, the really high-level talent, those people, and they have agents that they go through, and they get paid a lot of money. They get paid really, really well to do what they do for voiceovers. A lot of them go into the studios and do them. They can also do them from their home studios. That is something I don't play at that level for myself because I just decided I can't compete with those people. When I started, when I came back, I was a mom working from my home studio, and I decided that for me, the best way for me to go was to really go after corporations to do these e-learns and anything else that I could do in audiobooks and those such sort of things. But so that's the A level. Colorado is a C level when it comes to acting, which means currently, and this is changing because this area is growing, but the acting is not, there's not as much opportunity as there would be in some of the A levels. So that's just something to keep in mind. And when I talk to my students about where they want to look for work, I always say, like I have 3 main agencies, and I always say you should have talent agencies. If you have something that's a wow, like I have this kid that can do great animations. I have another gentleman who's a graphic designer who walked into my office. He's seen me twice, and by session number 2, I was like, oh my gosh, we're recording your demo, and you were going to go get an A-level agent. Like he's got that it voice. That doesn't happen that often. Those people, I say, go on over and fight for a spot with those big agencies. And anybody can do that. It's a fight though. I mean, it's always a fight because you're up against a lot of really competitive good talent living here in Colorado. Here there's lots of agencies that you don't have to be, like some superstar. You can get with Big Fish or Maximum or Radical, and they will give you some good commercial auditions and pay you really well. And those are some of the higher rating pay jobs, if you want to do it that way. So the tiers go commercial work, which is the highest paying. Then you have the industrial tutorials and corporate work, which pays less, but it's, at least in my, and I'm more of an expert in that just because that's where I spend a lot of my time. It leads to a lot of long-term work. If you do a good job for your clients and they like you, you keep bringing them back. I have a 24-hour turnaround time, so for example, if I'm here this morning, it's a Saturday, but I still will even do it on a Saturday if I have to. And I had this happen we had that hailstorm last week. Goldman Sachs, I had a job for them. I had a job for them and for Fiverr, all in the same day. And I have a 24-hour turnaround time. So this hailstorm came, I couldn't get it done. Then there was a snowstorm and I had a student, I was up, I made dinner for my family and I was up doing that late at night because I want to keep those clients. So if they wanted, and at about 7 o'clock he said, where is my narration? And I, said, it'll be here, it'll be here soon. We had a snowstorm. So it's that competitive that if you really want to be in that industry, it's kind of like songwriting. You all know, like songwriting, the music industry, you can, but you can't say, I want to be a musician, but I'm not really going to show up. You know what I mean? Like, I'll play your gig, but I'm not really going to show up. Like, if you do that.
Those guys.
I guess you do, right? No, but those guys don't get the long-term careers, right? And they may if they're really, really good, but at the end of the day, nobody wants to hire them. And the same thing goes for the voiceover industry. It's very competitive, especially if you are like what I do, which is the tutorials. There's a lot of middle-aged female voice talents out there. So I have to make sure that I give them perfect, clean files within 24 hours, and that's how I secure the work with them. So anyways, so that's commercial, industrial, tutorial. Then from there, you have animations, video games, that sort of thing. There can be a lot of money made there. If you are able, that's kind of like the third tier. I look at that like, once you've developed your skill as a commercial voice talent, then you're able to do the longer things. Then you go on to doing the animations and those sorts of things. And the more you can do, the more work there is out there. And then from there is the audiobooks. And I put audiobooks at the last tier, even though that's what people often want to do first, because it requires, along with these tutorials, a ton of ability to use your core strength, because your voice gets really, really tired, just like it is right now when I'm talking. If I stand here and talk for 2 hours. So in some of those audiobooks, you can get like books this big, and you're literally sitting in a studio for 7 hours a day just behind your microphone. And if you don't have a good understanding of how the voice mechanism works and are not using it properly, you can get really tired really, really fast. Oh, and the other thing is documentaries. So I do Living Overseas TV. I'm their narrator, and hopefully soon to be their on-camera person, but I don't know, I'm bidding for that. But that again is a documentary, and it's an example of something that people these days do. That is a online series where you have to buy in that helps retirees who don't want to, who want to live in really like places, like lush places across the world.
Belize.
Belize, Ecuador, Cuba. They want to go to these places, and my client has developed a website where he's an Emmy winning, he's won like 7 Emmys, he's amazing, but where these people can sign up and he gives you all the nitty gritty, and he gives you, by giving them to me, I tell the story about it and sell what he's doing, to what he's selling to retirees who want to live on the cheap in some really great places. So that's just another example of the type of work that's out there as far as that comes. Do you guys have any questions about that?
I just have a question about, like, most of the work that you have and have gotten, have you got it through your agency?
No.
Okay.
Are you with an agency?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're not getting a lot of work. Can I ask who that is?
It's Go Voices.
Oh, you're with Go Voices.
Yeah.
Did you get through them through another agency, or did you get through them directly?
Yeah, directly through a demo that I made in New York a number of years ago when I was a singer and dancer, and I was more focused on that. And I sort of put my demo on the shelf, and I didn't do a lot with it, but then when I moved here and started a family and stuff, I was like, what can I do to, so anyway, I was just curious about.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. In
Yeah.
fact, a very small percentage of my work comes through agencies. So I'm with 3 agencies. I've got one in Australia, one in Milwaukee, and then Big Fish Talent here.
Yeah.
And I would say for Big Fish, they send me probably an audition or two a month.
Mhm.
And I'm up against everybody else who, at this point, I taught most of the people at Big Fish, and now I'm up against my own competition, which didn't occur to me when I first started doing it. I'm like, oh, look at that. They're all doing everything I'm doing. But anyway, which is great, and I'm not complaining. I'm thankful for it. They're wonderful. But it's an interesting kind of thing. But no, the majority of my work, so I had a nice client base from the years past.
Okay.
I am a relationship builder with everything that I do, whether it's the band, whether it's, you know, my voiceovers, anything that it is. My goal is to develop a long-term relationship with people. So when I get a job, I keep them aware of what I'm doing. I try to give them things that are beneficial to them. I did the pay to play. I did Voice 1, 2, 3. And I actually did some market research on it and called around to a bunch of voice talent when I first started getting back into it, and said, what are you guys doing? And almost everybody was doing the pay to play. And the pay to play is, it's online, like Voice 1, 2, 3 or Voice Bunny or Voices.com, where you pay to get an opportunity to audition. I did that for a long time. I suggested, I know there's a lot, this is a big area of controversy in the voiceover world. A lot of people will be like, oh, you're not really good if you're doing the pay to play. I don't agree at all. I think that there are some of the top level people that are doing that. What happens is you pay like $300, now don't do this unless you are ready to do it, unless you have some demos, unless you know what you're doing. A lot of people think, I had this girl call me yesterday. This is a true story. She sent me an email and said, I'm 40 years old, I've done nothing with my life. I'd like to talk to you about maybe becoming a voice talent. So I said, sure. So I called her back yesterday, and she said, you know, I figured I can read, so I could just go be a voiceover talent, and I just was gonna maybe make a demo and put it on there and see what happens. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna tell you right now, if you do that, you're gonna waste your $325, not just because I'm a coach, but because talking is very, very different than voice acting. There is a small percentage, like that Australian guy who walked into my office, in my studio, who's amazing, who just walk in and they're just incredibly good at it. But for the most part, it's kind of like singing or anything else. If you just think you're gonna go be a singer, you can totally do that, but you have to start somewhere. Anyway, so she called, when we were on the phone, she was telling me that, and then she said, well, if I were to come in and take classes from you, would you guarantee me work? And I said, no, that's not my job. This is a hard competitive industry that you can totally do well at, but you're gonna have to build your own momentum. My job is to start your momentum and to teach you to get to that point. And I know I'm digressing, but I'm telling you this because I'm about to say that I am a proponent of these pay-to-play sites, if you're ready for it. Because it's like, it used to be, I don't know what it is now. I don't know if are you on Voice 1, 2, 3 or any of those? It used to be $325 a month. I don't know what it is now. At this point in my career, I'm really blessed to be doing very little auditioning because I'm just not there at this moment. But what you do is you pay $325. Somebody told me it's now $400. I don't know. You have a couple demos on there, and you're in this giant pool of people who go and audition. Like I did get a memo from them yesterday, which I don't know why I'm not a member anymore. It was a 30-minute medical piece. You had to be able to do medical terminology, which I can do some of, so I qualify for that. 30 minutes, $700. They were looking for 25 people. So the first 25 people to reply get that opportunity to audition for that. My feeling is, and to answer your question, you land that job, they become your best friend. That client then becomes,
then you build that relationship,
and you
it
say,
becomes part of your
what
business.
can I do for your next medical piece? That's just how I have done it,
Right.
you know? And that requires a lot of work in an area that's not the art of it. It just requires a business sense of just being like, you know, what can I do for you? And hey, I'm still over here, you know, it's been 6 months, what can I help you with? You know, just that kind of thing. So anyways, those pay to play. So I did that, and I qualified to become a higher level pay to play. And there was a time when I was auditioning maybe 3.5 hours a day. I did that for a few years. Got up early in the morning, auditioned for like 3.5 hours, and worked all afternoon. and did that day after day after day with the long-term goal of building a clientele. So that's for me how I did it. And Big Fish or the other agencies, Go Voices, I know somebody else is with Go Voices, and she said, they keep sending me on auditions and I don't get any, what's the matter? I'm with with a huge, like I call it one of those like big tank, agency out of Milwaukee. I never look at jobs, very rarely. And when you do, they're like $1,000, for this job, but you're up against all kinds of different people. So I am a proponent of the pay to play as one. I kind of, you all have ever heard those multiple streams? Like you do multiple things, right? Multiple streams of income. I don't think in today's market, being a voiceover talent as your mainstream of income starting out of the gate is a great goal. I think that it's a great goal for a part-time thing that you develop your skill and you move into that along with maybe some other things. Now, I have a client who left and went and she got a job as a voice talent for a company, like a production company. That's a great way to go too, because she came in and said, I have the skill to be behind the camera, but I also can be your voice talent. So she got the job. So now she does all of their voiceovers. So you can do that as well. The other thing is, for me, sometimes I go directly. I've gone directly to the companies because I know how that works. So I know who to directly go to and be like, hey, I can do this for you. This is what I offer. This is my resume, and all of that. So yeah, that was a really long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's great. That's great. Just to sort of piggyback on that, do you have a demo then for all these different? Because I have a commercial demo and that's it. But I'm so interested in.
You need more.
Yeah. Okay.
I have an audiobook demo. I have a character demo. I have an industrial.
Yeah, I
demo.
went to your website
demo.
the other day.
I mean, I'm ridiculous. I have like demo,
Okay.
because I don't know what they're going to want,
Right.
and I don't want, I want to be able to give whatever it is that they're asking me for. So that to me, I think, like people that come and coach with me, we start with one demo, and then we generally have a goal of a second demo. Because I think you need to find also a niche. I think that just doing the commercial, think about it. I don't know what your voice is like and what your skill set is, but you're in a pool of all these people after the big bucks, those commercial work. So if you can find what it is that really makes you tick, and that's a hard thing to find, but if you can find, I have one woman who specializes in medical terminology. So she goes after the medical jobs. I have another guy that's an attorney, and he is very interested in legal speak, and he understands that world, so he is able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of find that and move in that direction,
Right.
Yeah. And to answer for you, talking about being a mom, I look at it as, are you able to connect? Have you had experience connecting with people? Like any kind of sales?
Asking me?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
asking.
I have.
Okay, like sales or anything
Yes.
like, okay. So that experience right there, you can draw upon to connect. If you are a person who doesn't get other people, you might not be the best voice talent. I'm just saying, if you have an ear and you're a musician and you can hear tones and different things like that, that's a total plus for you. If you can connect with people, and you have an interest in communicating, because that's what it is, it's communicating. Understanding that you're not just talking to people.
We call it the communication skills of an engineer.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
Engineers are really poor communicators.
Oh. Yeah, and if you don't have that ability to connect, and I look at it like an understanding of.
Is your husband an engineer?
Yes.
Oh, he is? Does he not communicate?
No, he's pretty good, but he's a pretty quiet guy. He doesn't, yeah.
It's funny you say I was a quasi-engineer. It was almost an engineer.
Well, not everybody's
I
like
was
that.
too
But there's an
extroverted.
awful lot of
Generally.
people that get into engineering
Yeah.
so that they can just focus in that little world, and
Yeah.
it's like mechanics. They think with hammers.
And that's okay.
And wrenches.
But they just might not be the best voice talent. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it is something that you either can do or you can't. I have a lot of people who come and it takes them a while to
I was
kind of
an
get
art
into
school
it.
dropout that worked as an engineer for 30 years. So I was the one that went into the public speaking.
I'm sure. Okay, well, so we've got 5 more minutes before we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to do an exercise together. I wanted to just really quickly tell you also about the different things. And you probably know this, but do you all know and I'm gonna give you something to kind of pass around for just a minute here. How long is a typical commercial? Anyone know?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, that's right. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, right? There's a commercial pacing, and there is a audiobook / tutorial pacing. The audiobook pacing is 150 words per minute. That's what they usually are after. So it's a lot slower than the commercial pacing. And I'm going to give you this just to pass this around. I'm not going to let you keep it because these are actual client jobs that I've done, so I don't think it's a good idea for me to hand them out. But I wanted you to see kind of what things look like. And I'll give you one to start back there and one here, and you guys can just take a quick look. This is a 60-second television spot, and this is kind of what it looks like coming from the client. This is the voice of Ashley Furniture in Tobago and I don't know, Trinidad. And so this is a radio spot right here for them. And then this one on the very end, just one of their, and you'll see that it's tedious, important but tedious narration. So if you could just pass it down to the middle, and I went into this job in Denver. The client, it was through my agency. I told you this already, but I'm going to quickly tell everybody else. Had sent me the script in advance. You don't always get the script in advance, but I did. And I was to meet, I didn't know this at the time, but 2 male other voice talent when I got there. So got there, couldn't find parking. I was, parked for 45 minutes in Denver trying to find parking. Got there, when I got there, the producer was at the table, like a big long table like this, with 2 other voice talent. He said, let's go. As soon as I walked in, and I just made it there on time. As soon as I walked in, he did not give me the script. All the voice talent already had our script with us. We all had our pencils, which is why you have to have a pencil with you. I'll explain to you. And I'm telling you all this so you kind of know how it works when you go into a client studio. Because it's not all at your home studio, especially if you're with an agency. You wind up going into the client. So we went in, and this was 2 pages long, and I did not go first. I sat in a chair outside in the booth. They went into the isolation booth, had the hanging mic, and read through their scripts. The director said, stop, to there's gentleman number 1, gentleman number 2, voice actors, and said to number 2, be more casual. Start over. Stop. Be more casual. They went through, he let it go, they finished. Then I went in to do the next script with the first gentleman. We went through the script, no problem. It was done in 1 take. So that was 1 page, full script, 1 take, done. Walked out. Came back in with gentleman number 2, went through it, stop, more casual. My point is, today, relatable, casual connection. If you go home with anything, that is the key today. And the way to get there, and I know I'm a coach, I'm just telling you, there are techniques. And that's how you get there, is you learn the techniques of manipulating yourself to sound casual and still having commercial tone and qualities and everything. It's not as easy as you would think. It's easy when you're just chatting, but it's not as easy as you would think, just generally speaking. And doing all of that talking doesn't always come out the way that you hear in your head. So anyway, that's how that went down. So the pencil was there because as they gave me, the director always has changes, and you need to be able to take notes about those changes. So you always have a pencil, and he expects you to make those changes the first time. Whatever tone changes or whatever he wants. Okay, that's done, and that will help you get a feel. So I'm going to open it up if there's any additional questions for the next 15 minutes that I can answer.
Do you ever read things totally the opposite of what they should be read, just to get it out of your system?
Do you know if it's just
No, I was just thinking, like, if I really wanted to get the wiggles out, so to speak, then I might read something the opposite of what it needs to be read.
I'd be afraid I'd make that mistake.
That's an interesting
in front of the
way to
mic.
Yeah, no, but I do. I always, when I start, pretty much every day, screw it up for the first 10 minutes. Always. I go in and I'm like, blah, 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 and then I stop myself and I'm like, delete, and then I start over, and then I'm in the mode, But if I hadn't read, I always screw it up, And a lot of students come and they screw it up when they first get there because they're rigid, and that comes through, and it just takes a little bit of, getting into it. Yes?
So, does your, the person wanting you to do this, did they tell you what they want you to put the emphasis on?
No.
Because
will
we were,
sometimes.
say it again.
Sometimes they will.
Because we were talking and, he was saying that, he would put it on a different word, right? And so.
And that's cool.
That's why I was wondering,
Like in the
how
first.
do you know?
What's my motivation?
Well, you know
You
by,
pick it out.
so every one of us is different, first of all. So, and every person that is listening is different. So I look at it like I analyze a script and I make my decision based on what I think is important. That could be different than what he thinks is important.
And then the corporation or whoever can pick which one they like. Is that how they pick?
No. So oftentimes,
I mean the person that's doing it, they can pick which one.
they wouldn't do it that way though. Usually what they'll do is they'll get on the phone with you and direct you. And they'll be like, sometimes they'll say things like, make that more blue. And you don't know what they're talking about. You don't quite understand. But they'll direct you in some form, right? Oftentimes, or for commercial jobs, and they'll direct you. And they'll be like, you can take it line by line, sometimes paragraph by paragraph. Other times, if it's not that distinctive, like for Ashley Furniture, I give them 3 takes. So I give them slow, medium, fast, and then they can pick from that every time I do a job for them. I do it that way. And so it just depends. For the longer jobs, like the Living Overseas TV, he was on the phone with me the first time, and he wanted me to be like super, super casual, like a super casual voice. Like, we're gonna talk about living in a way super relaxed way. So he had to talk me through that, and he actually said, I want you to record for me at the same time every day. And unfortunately for me, I just did a gig, and my voice was super scratchy, and I'm like, how am I gonna duplicate this next time I do this job, because I'm doing a series for him. But so they will direct you with, if they don't like it, but you don't ever give them choices and then they pick like that. That's usually not how it goes.
Who's the person directing you?
Oh, that's a great question. I can't believe I didn't tell you that. Usually, there's 2 things. There's the people in between, like the directors, production companies.
It also
That's the
has
good portion
all
of the
of
people
the
that I
powers
work
in
with.
this one.
And sometimes it's just the writer. If you're through a lot of the e-learnings I do are just through corporations, and then once you get the feel with them, you just keep doing it. So it depends, but for the most part, it's the middleman. The client goes to the production company, which then comes to you. Did I answer that?
Have you ever
Yes,
had
thank
any like ethical issues in the job where someone was
I
disrespectful?
am a very open person. There are many people that do have ethical issues. I am not one of them. I narrated an adult romance under a pseudonym for my very first audiobook. And I did that a 30-minute one. So I don't have those, that's just me. Everybody's different. And I did that because I really wanted to understand how the audiobook industry worked, and to be able to do that. Many people would have not have done that because it might be outside of the realm. So I don't have that. But there are many people, I have students who just say, I won't do that, you know. And I haven't had anything under my name that I haven't felt comfortable with.
We just need to find out what your pseudonym is.
Right. That's exactly, yeah. So,
Probably
A
because
friend
of
in
the
Arizona
candy.
made a fortune doing bass lines for pornos.
oh, really? I know somebody who did that too in Los Angeles. Yeah, and I've never done anything like that. You know, I've never been asked to do anything like that.
So the porno narrator is under another name?
I did not do porno.
Oh.
I've never done that. I did an adult, I did an adult
It's like a
romance.
George Costanza thing.
Yeah, an adult, you know those
Naked.
adult romance novels. I did
Yeah.
one 30-minute of those, only once, and I did it just under another name, just because my rate was super low. It was like $50 per finished hour. I probably made $5 an hour, really, when it was all said and done, to just go through the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ethical issues that come along. I mean, for
So
sure.
is it like Scarlet Dupree?
That's all my
The
lips are sealed.
romance
That's
novel.
all it's
Well, that's something to think about for a while.
That's-
You'll just have to find the audiobook, right?
Yeah, never find it.
Rod has a question.
Yeah.
On let's say this steak wagon place existed in Denver here or something. What would be the range of like pay range? That's
It's
something
all
like that for a local.
over the map. if you go through an agency, it's crazy. It's actually crazy how all over the map. If you are a union actor and you're in an A market, so you're not asking that, but if you are.
Yeah, like if it was just like, if this was on like KBPI or something.
Okay, well, let me just say this. If you're in an A market and you're with one of those big agencies, you could make lots of money. Like, you know, I am not, and I have not ever done those jobs, but I've heard you can make like $1,000 a job. I don't know if you've heard that, but if you go through a talent agency, my talent agency takes 20%. It depends. It can be anywhere from $350 for the job to $600, you know, something like that. Now, if you're doing a pay to play and you're gaining the work yourself, your rates are much lower. Your rates are higher if it's national. So if this commercial were national, and that was their usage, the rate would be a lot higher. And it can be, you know, $450, could be $650. It just depends. If it's a closer to home commercial, sometimes you might get $200. I mean, it just depends on what you rate out. You know, sometimes I'll charge less. Like for Ashley Furniture, I give them a deal because they need twice a month new Ashley Furniture commercials. So I'm like, hey, I'll be your girl. You know, I'll give you a deal. Just keep calling me back. So that's kind of how I do that. You know.
Right.
So
my question was, when you're first starting out, how much negotiation, bargaining power do you have with your work, or do you?
None, I would say that, well, when you're first starting out, you have to audition. We were talking about this in the hallway because you have to practice. It's the only way you're going to get really good. And you go on a bunch of auditions and you gain some work. And when you gain those work, especially on the pay-to-play sites, they give you a rate. They tell you what it's going to be. You know, I'm only bidding out for work that I have from my past clients or work that I go get myself and I give them a rate. So you do have negotiation in that.
What's your rate?
My rate is 0.095 cents per word, which is depending. That's only if I'm doing it for a tutorial or e-learning or something like that for a long-term client. My rate is significantly higher for commercials and other things, and that just varies. The rates are all over the place. So I couldn't even tell you what my rate is because for that. But I do have so I have like the Microsoft and the Old Navy and all of these big people, they're long-term clients of mine. So they give me consistent work. So that's not a high rate. That's a job.
Right.
Does that make sense? But it turns out to make me $70 to $100 an hour if I'm on my game and I know what I'm doing. It all comes down to it.
Sure.
So I can do well at a job, if that makes sense. Yeah.
What if you can turn stuff really fast?
That comes from practice. Yeah.
Well, no, if you.
That's how my
if you
rate
have
is
that
set.
ability, like if somebody sends you a script by email and they want you to audition the first couple of lines with that, and you can turn that out, very quickly because nothing here. Nothing,
Well, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I do that already, and that's why my rate is what it is. Like that's why I'm making. When I did that first audiobook, I made $5 or so an hour because I just didn't know what I was doing for audiobook production. That's a whole different thing. So that's why I make a lot of. I feel like $70 to $100 an hour is pretty good money when you base it all out. That's from doing it best.
Do some of the bigger vocal talents have a separate audio engineer?
I bet you they do. I mean, I bet you that those, like all these famous people, they probably
Like
are
Juan
doing.
Montaigne or something?
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. Or,
I mean, he's no longer alive, but when he was, I'm sure, he
Yeah,
went in and
yeah,
had
people,
it done.
yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that I would consider myself probably a B-level player. I'm not an A-level player. And sometimes I'm a C-level player, it just depends. So I do go to the client, but often I do it myself. So yes, but I would say, and I don't mean this in any way, but I would not consider thinking you're going to get into the voiceover business without having a home studio. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So that's just what it comes down to. There's nobody out there that's going to be like, come in and I will create a voiceover career for you. You have to have a studio yourself and.
It's like joining a band. Do you expect to make a living doing this?
Well, you can make a living. There are voice talents that make, they make six figures. You can, think about that. My rate, if I were doing that all the time, you can make a good living doing it. But it takes practice and years and relationships and anything else. It's the same. Well, I just think, this is just my life philosophy for whatever it's worth. I believe in momentum. So, like you said, which is why I'm here doing this. I just believe that you put yourself in a position where you keep moving yourself forward. When the opportunities come, you're ready. If you don't do that, when the opportunities come, you're not ready, and you don't get the opportunity.
Yeah, the Denver Musicians Association may be looking for somebody to do a commercial for them.
Any of these folks that are doing it, or I can do it. So I want to tell you guys, if anybody's interested, and there's no pressure about it, here's some tips. Insider's Guide, you're welcome to take this, and then here's my card. I do private coaching. I do 1 hour sessions if you just want to come in, talk about your equipment, like Natasha said, coming to you, I do that. I also do 6 sessions where I create a demo for you, or maybe a second demo, depending on where we're at, where I teach you, I'm pretty much an open book. My goal at this point where I am, I spent too long auditioning. I'm to the point where I'm not doing that very much anymore, and now I'm just creating good voice for babies. So that's kind of where I'm at. So if you, whatever I can do to help, if anybody's interested, come on in. So that's it. Okay.